Welcome back to another episode of Prop Sessions. Today, we've got Graham Locke on, who is the owner and founder of the FIA. Without further ado, welcome, Graham.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It's a real pleasure, and we initially started speaking when you were having I think a little bit of a demo through Prop Media, and now we're here. And before we just jumped on, we were just actually talking about one of the new pieces of tech that you're rolling out to your members of the FIA, which I'd love to get into. But I guess just before we do that, just to kind of give the agents listening a bit of context, if they don't already know who you are and what the organisation is, could you just give us a little bit of a backstory into the FIA and sort of how it came about?
Yeah, sure. We launched around 18 months ago. We currently have 40 different independent agent members from around the country. So the FIA was formed to add support to independents. We typically sort of work with the 1 to 3 branches of independents, and what we do is we provide lots of products and services, sort of thought leadership. We're very much sort of dealing in the higher end of independents in terms of their performance. So fairly established, and also the up and coming agents, independents that want to try new products, that aren't afraid to sort of look at new processes and how they can improve their agency. So we're just trying to take the really good agents, the really good operators that are out there already, and then help their businesses further by giving them new products, offering new services. And we sort of scan the suppliers market on a regular basis to try and find the best suppliers, so that our agent members can carry on just doing what they do on a day-to-day basis without sort of being disturbed by all the noise in the market from the 320 odd suppliers that there are. It's quite a lot to sort of get your head around. So we do a lot of work on that. We put on regular conferences, both virtually and physically when we're allowed to. And the products we've got something like 27 different products that members can choose from. They're all approved by us as well. And we have some very good buying power, similar to that of a 40 branch corporate, I guess. So the more members we get, the more buying power we have. So we can get our members some very strong deals on commercials. And one of the key factors of the FIA is that we're exclusive to one agent per town. So once an agent has that exclusivity, that membership of the FIA, they can use that as an advantage when they're going out on market appraisals as well. And we don't hold anyone into contract, so it's sort of a monthly rolling contract. And that's two-sided. One, because we want to make sure that we always have the best independents in our group. And secondly, we don't want to hold in any members that aren't happy to be in our organisation. So there's lots of flexibility about it. But yeah, we have a fantastic group of agents. We have WhatsApp groups and things like that. So we're constantly sharing ideas, sharing best practice as well. So from one great independent up in, say, Harrogate can teach another great independent something down in, say, Kent. And they can come together and have those conversations. So yeah, it's just really sharing as well. So so it's a really cool group. And our aim is to get obviously a good independent agent in every town in the country.
You know, one of the things that you do that I absolutely love is the exclusivity per town, because obviously there's so many benefits to it. But one of the things I like is that it encourages that whole network to work together. I'd be curious to know what it's like on the inside. You know, where you've got that community kind of sense. Do you find that it's actually agents helping out each other as well within the community?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm there to sort of oversee everything, put some sense checks in place, negotiate commercial deals on behalf of our group. But the members are very much peer-to-peer in that they'll chat with each other. And I think particularly this has come to the front really during COVID, and when that first lockdown was announced, there was quite a panic, as you can imagine, all over the world probably, but in estate agency we really felt it as well. So the members helped each other to get through, and that's not about best practice or what we should be doing on a day-to-day basis in terms of selling properties. This was about government grants, understanding the furlough scheme, all that kind of stuff. So it's quite far-reaching in how we help each other. There's lots of different things on there. So, for example, we've had recent conversations in our WhatsApp group about lettings documentation, about for sale boards to use, about Facebook marketing versus flyering and that kind of stuff. So it can be such a wide range of things. And sort of post lockdown, when I spoke to the members again about this, one of the things that they really liked about being part of a group was just having someone to talk to, whether that be myself, whether that be another member, whether that be us as a group of members. And we put on webinars, obviously, when it happened. And we continue to do webinars like that because it just helps in general to talk to other business owners. Because it's very lonely being an independent. You know, you haven't got a large corporate looking after you, you haven't got anyone guiding you. You're just kind of doing what you do and hoping it's enough sometimes. So having that group to sense check with is priceless, really. And if anything, it's a support network as well as a great group of estate agents.
What was it like during, the lockdown, that period from, I guess, that first lockdown to, I guess, now coming out of the second? What's that period been like for, I guess, you as, you in the business, but then also for the agents?
It's been a learning process. And I think in hindsight, it's actually been it's been a good thing, COVID, in respect of the businesses that have come through it are far more robust. I think they're more sort of focused, I think it's fair to say. So I think there's a lot of complacency pre-COVID. Going into COVID, the group we had just really focused really sharply, and we had webinars and things like that where we said, right, okay, this is here, what are we going to do about it? And the sensible approach was actually to say, not just to put the fire out, which would be to knee-jerk, okay, how do we get out of this really quickly, what do we change quickly? It was actually, okay, after this event, nothing's going to be the same again, let's have a look at it from that standpoint, because we all felt that the world had changed. And it wasn't just my opinion, this is the opinion of business owners like me, out there going, actually, this is quite a significant moment in time. So the processes and systems that we put in place now aren't just going to get us through this period, they're going to serve us well beyond COVID. So we so we came out of it in really good shape. And obviously the market pinged back quite aggressively in terms of sales and lettings, just hit the ground running again. So we was really well prepared in the post-COVID era. And what's happened now is we just got better businesses. So some of the fat was cut from these businesses, admin was cut from the businesses. Some of the underperformers in terms of staff didn't make it through that period. So we sort of went into it quite fat and quite complacent, I guess. And out the other side, much leaner versions of what we were, which is now future-proofing those businesses. And I think next year they're in great shape to benefit from it next year.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with, how new systems can be put in place for estate agencies just to make their lives either more efficient, save time, make staff's jobs a little bit easier. What were some of the things that you kind of did to, as you said, future-proof, which I love that use of that word. What were some of the things that you did for your members to help them obviously do well in that lockdown, but then, be ready for the, how business is going to be done in the future?
Yeah, some things were quite basic. So some of the things were actually getting back on the phones, doing the basic estate agency tasks again, like building relationships with buyers, building relationships with sellers, explaining to sellers what was going on, which is always interesting for them to have that conversation. So we started to really focus on how you add value to a relationship, and also with your staff, your culture internally. How can you future-proof that? Are you looking after your staff? Mental well-being. So we partnered with a charity called Mind for mental health. So we had a look at that side of things. So how are your staff going to cope working from home? This is all new. So let's put processes in place to make sure they can do that. Have they got the right equipment to start with? Are you looking after them? Don't leave them too long on their own, because people don't like that, because it feels quite isolating. And then on the product side, you've got things like Gavel, who we partnered with, which is an online viewing platform. So it enabled all of our agents to, if they wanted that product, and we got it at a very good discount for our members, to go out and actually do that property viewing virtually. So that nowadays the first viewing, often on lettings, will be done virtually. And then we've sort of taken those procedures, and some of our member agents now are adopting virtual viewings as the first point of call, for example. So we've got the member that will only do viewing one virtually, and then if you're interested, they'll do a physical viewing. So that those sort of processes have just saved so much time in admin, particularly on lettings and negotiators going out in the car to show viewer after viewer after viewer around the same property. They could be out all day doing that. This has just narrowed it down to, you look online first, we'll do the presentation. If you like it, let's go and view it and let's get the deal done. So those efficiencies weren't there before, but they're very much there now. And that's when I kind of say the transition from putting a fire out to future-proofing started to happen, going, hold on a minute, this is good practice anyway, isn't it? Like, shouldn't we just be doing this as a company? Because it saves so much time. And obviously doing Zoom calls like this, kind of happened before, but not really. We're now sort of so used to doing it, and vendors, whereas before they'd be like, oh no, I wouldn't want to talk to you about doing a virtual market appraisal. They're actually so used to getting on the computer now and on the phone and doing these calls that they're like, yep, that's fine, let's do that as well. So you can start doing market appraisals remotely. It's opened up all these new channels. So, and actually people are quite comfortable with it. It's sort of really, I guess it's fast forwarded everybody to get comfortable with this sort of stuff. Whereas you watch a movie 10 years ago, people would communicate like this in the film. You go, oh, that's a bit weird. Is that like the Jetsons sort of thing, future proofing? But actually it's here now. And we're all kind of used to it, and we're all good at it now. So yeah, there's lots of things that we put in place that, as I said, not just surviving COVID, but actually thriving after and now in place. And as you said, it's about, can you save time or can you save money? If you can find a product that does both of those things, then happy days. But one or the other is sort of the paramount that we look for.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you can ever do either of those, it's always worth having a look. And I guess that's one of the benefits, right? Is that you can sort of keep your eye on the ball with all these new things coming onto the market. Because this is one of the biggest things that I see when I speak to agents. There's so much prop tech and different things out there, and some of it's blooming fantastic. Some of it, as we were talking before, maybe doesn't necessarily serve a problem. It's kind of just sort of invented, right? And this is one of the biggest things that I see with agents when I speak to them. They're running so many different tools, and a lot of the time they don't even remember all of the tools they have, or if they do, it's hard to use them to their full capacity. Right. And I think that can often be overlooked because there is so much great stuff out there, but it's like that filtering through process. That's how we, right? It's having that lens to keep your finger on the pulse of the market as a whole. And I think that's such a powerful benefit of the kind of group mentality. I kind of think of it like as a mastermind, right? If you look at some of these, high level kind of masterminds you can go into to be around other high performers, you can spend an absolute arm and a leg just to be around those types of people who can kind of bring you up. And that's kind of one of the things I love about having it as a group. What are some of the things that you see with, some of your top performing agents? It can be like, whether it doesn't have to be necessarily business practice or anything like that. It can even be, the mindset of these business owners, because you're in quite a unique position where you're seeing a lot of different high performing estate agents speaking to the actual business owners. What are some of the things that you notice about them?
About the business owners themselves, or the way they run the business?
We can do both, but I'd love to start with the actual business owners.
The business owners, they're largely the same. So the ones that I speak to, we as I said before, we have around 40 different business owners, various sizes of business. But the one thing that they're very short of generally is time. So they're all very much involved in the business. The better operators that I come across in industry, generally speaking, are those that work on rather than in their business. That's 100% true. And their businesses seem to grow quicker once they get out of that transition of being in to working on. So the ones that are working in, they just don't get that time to sort of have a look around and see what's going on. The ones that are working on the business are constantly just tweaking processes, tweaking systems. For example, we've got one member in our group that's got 17 different logins for different systems in his business. And he's tearing his hair out. It frustrates the hell out of him, as you can imagine. So he's not, he works on the business, I'd say. He's one of those operators. And his mission is to get that 17 down. He'd love it to be one, but I don't think that's actually possible in this industry at the moment. We might get there, but that's all about another conversation, probably for another day, about APIs and integrations, and open APIs, etc. So yeah, that's the two different kinds of business owners that I come across. Those two, you either work in or you work on. But I do find the ones that work on are much more fleet-footed and much more successful in growing their businesses, and they can see the bigger picture in that sense. So yeah, that's what I'd say I've noticed about the business owners, is that they're short of time, and there's sort of two different kinds generally. In terms of the business itself, they're all run largely, all roughly the same. They use Rightmove, Zoopla on the market for their core sort of portals. They have a CRM, which is sort of the bedrock of everything, and then they add whatever they like along the way. But I think along the way, some of them have been so engrossed in this, that, and the other. They've got so many different products. They probably don't realise what they've got, how they should be using it, how things might integrate together now, but they don't realise that they do that. Some of them are using stuff like Zapier to pull things together. So I think it's fair to say our industry has got so many different components. It's incredible how many different components there are. And estate agents by nature, and I'm not doing them a disservice, they'd agree with me, because I used to be one as well. We're not very technical. So we don't know how to glue all these things together. I'll speak to an agent who's a brilliant operator. He'll just say, Graham, I can't get these things to work. I know what I want them to do, but how do I get them to actually talk to each other? How do I get consolidate this into one platform? And it's quite mind-boggling, to be fair, because there are so many components to it. And I think there are some CRMs coming out now that are starting to pull together some of those tasks and get those 17 logins down a little bit. So I think that's where we need to probably go, but I'm probably jumping ahead of the conversation. But I think the problems are lack of time and too many systems at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, and working on the business other than in, we hear that saying, now and again, and I to me that looks like you're able to kind of step away from the business and actually look at it from a 30,000 kind of bird's eye view, and it can still run and it can still go without you there. And I think for a lot of agents, or to be honest, any business owners really, that is the nirvana, right? Because if you can step away and the business is in the same position or even better than when you left, you've got a real great running business, right? From the agents you've seen, have you seen any kind of make that transition from, they're pulling their hair out and they've got 101 things to do, and then they're able to actually get to a point where they can step back and work on it? And if so, I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on how they'd go about doing that.
Yeah, so we've seen a couple of transitions actually with the FIA members. I won't name names, it'd be unfair, but there's sort of a couple that spring to mind that were going through that transition when they joined the FIA, like amazing businesses. One in particular selling, maybe 40 properties a month from one office, a very busy environment. He had to rotate his team probably 3 times in 12 months, which is a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. And I think that's probably the single most important thing. If you're looking to come away and work on your business, you've got to find people that are as good as you, if not better, ideally better than you, to do that particular job. So you can't be a valuer, a negotiator, office manager, a social media manager, a marketing manager. You can't be all those things, but inevitably you have to start somewhere. So I think a lot of us in business start trying to do everything in our own business, because we don't have the luxury of raising millions of pounds to build a team. So you learn that stuff at a basic level. I always say, like GCSE, Excel, stuff like that. You just learn how to do it and get by. But at some point, if you want to grow your business and expand, you have to bring in other people to do that job better than you would do it. And that's how I've always operated my businesses, is get to a point where you can afford to bring people in and just bring in the best Excel operator you can find, the best social media person, the best marketing person that you can possibly get. And I think that's where the transitions I've seen have worked really well. They've employed recruitment agents. They've not done it themselves, again, because it's time consuming trying to find staff. So they've brought in good recruiters, told them exactly who they want, gone and headhunted that talent. And then once those people finally in place and you stop rotating the staff and they're settled and they're great and they're good and you've got the culture, you then start to pull away and notice actually day to day the business is going to start to operate better. And I'm able to lead it better. So it's such a great moment, like you say, that Nevada moment where you just come away and go, I've done it and I've got those people. And then it's all about that culture, keeping those people in the business. Don't let those people leave for someone else, because then you're back in the fold again. And that's the problem a lot of agents have. They get great people, they don't look after them, and then they leave. And then that owner's back in that seat doing that job until they find the new person. So yeah, look, I've seen it happen, and it's brilliant when it happens. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to get right first time, but I think it's all about having the right team behind you and working for you and with you that enables that transition to be successful.
And for agents who are maybe they've had a good, a strong last half a year, maybe a really strong year in total, and they're at a point where they're thinking, okay, maybe now's the time to start getting that A team together. What would you say is a good place to start in terms of who they should be bringing on? So they've got they've got their basic roles that they need employed to run the business. From that point, would you have any recommendations on where they should start? What positions they should start hiring for first?
I think it depends where they are in their own cycle. So if they are, let's talk to the majority. So you've got a one branch independent. You've got 4 people in it plus you, which is normally a couple of negotiators, a couple of listers, and yourself. I think if you're happy with that, it's fine. If you've got ambitions to take the business forward from there, then there's 2 ways. Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One is that you look at your market share. So if you're the market leader already, there's not going to be a great deal of market share to go after. So then you can focus your attention on how you build your audience further. Maybe you look at your fees, maybe look at other income streams like mortgages, like conveyancing. At that point as well, I would probably be focusing very much on data, my database, because data's so powerful now if you get it right. I'd then be looking at social media and getting that right content, doing those things right. So if I'm already the best and the biggest in my area, there's always something else you can do to actually add value, add revenue, add data, and just keep yourself up there. If you're sort of vying for market share and you're new, I think you can probably have a look at your office. Who have you got in your office? Are they up to the task? What KPIs have you got in place to make sure you've got the right people? So just because you've always converted at 35% on market appraisals doesn't make it the right number. I think the industry should be, if you're good, should be up to about 55% conversion on the higher end of that. So you can look, it's important to have these KPIs in place, I think, to know where the leaky bucket is. If you're not growing, why aren't you growing? If you're mid-market, why aren't you reaching a bit higher now? Or how do you get to reach a bit higher? And I think it comes down to, KPIs, employing the right people, having the right systems. And as I said before, probably a combination of all those things like social media, content, data. Are you staying in touch with your previous buyers? All those kind of good practices. I think a lot of agents often go after the quick wins, when actually a lot of the wins are within the business already, particularly if they've been trading for years and years and years. They're going to have a lot of good data in that business. It's just that a lot of agents don't know how to look after it. So I think any agent can probably hold their hands up, no matter what position they're in today, looking for forecasting for next year, which they'll be doing right now. And I think you just have to look at every single vertical, every different way that you can make your business better. There will be one that you can focus on, that without doubt. There's no one doing it perfectly. So there's always going to be something. So if I was an agent now running an independent business, I'd be planning for next year, looking at where I could improve, make those increments. And it doesn't have to be anything dramatic. It's just small tweaks. Eventually you're going to be in a much better place. But I think the planning is a big part of it. And again, a lot of agents don't plan, they just carry on. They just continue doing what they do. But you need to have that plan, and you need to have targets. And I mean, if you've got any ambition to grow the business, you've got to have those in place.
Yeah, I was doing a podcast a couple of days ago with a gentleman named Jerry Loynes at Lyons. I don't know if you know him. He runs the Estate Agents Content Club, right? So they basically produce content for estate agents. And we were talking about some of the best agents he knows, and there was this one in particular that he kept coming back to. He said he was an absolute veteran in the field, and the one thing that set him apart from a lot of the other agents that he'd come across is that he was just obsessed with how can we make it 1% better in every single vertical, whether it was with the content he was writing with Jerry, or whether it was actually in the business, whether it was going out on market appraisals, whatever it was just a 1% tweak every single time, no matter how good he thought it was just how can we make this slightly better. And I think that mindset, I think, is a really good one to consider and subscribe to, because if it's just that small tweak over time, you also get that kind of consistency, which then leads to building momentum. And then before you look back, it's end of 2021 and your business has doubled just because you've been focusing on making those tiny little tweaks. Really, really interesting that you came up on that. One of the other things you touched on as well was content. I think this is a really hot topic at the moment, right? Content, social media, all this kind of stuff. I think one of the interesting things I've seen is that during lockdown, I think a lot of agents realized, okay, look, I'm now spending a good chunk of my day on the phone consuming content, and lo and behold, so are our vendors and landlords, or so are our prospects, right? So I think there's been a real shift towards how do we put out good content? How do we, leverage social media? What kinds of things are, do you help your agents with that, or do you have any kind of any trends or tips that I think would be useful in that area?
In terms of content, I think it's something that's so hard to get right that you have to get help. A lot of agents think just because they're putting out a video a week or writing a blog a week, they're doing content. But it's so hard to get right because we're an industry that's relatively uninteresting. We're not like a lifestyle brand or anything like that you can have fun with. It's quite tough to make agency fun in the eyes of the public and engaging. So how do you make it engaging? And again, it comes back to what I said before. You start an estate agency because you're a good estate agent, not because you're a good content writer or a marketer. So they fall into the trap, a lot of people just doing it themselves. And I've seen some brilliant videos from agents that just happen to be talented in front of a camera by accident. But I've seen, for every one of those, I've seen 20 make an absolute pig's ear of it and actually do more damage, do more harm than good. And that's the problem with content. You can make yourself look like a real wally if you write an article that's got spelling mistakes in it, or grammatical errors, or it's just rubbish, or it just goes on too long, or it's too short. It's like the Three Bears, isn't it? Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You've got to get it just right. And I think with video, it's the same. You can put out a video that will alienate half your audience in a heartbeat because you say the wrong thing, or you look the wrong way, or you sound the wrong way. And it's all brand damage ultimately, because you're projecting this out there. And if you say the wrong thing or come across like you don't know what you're talking about, and that can happen when you're doing video, especially if you're doing it live and you do it on one take and you go, oh, I've done it now, I better just upload it. It's got an error in there, but don't worry, kind of thing. So I think content is it's a loaded gun. It's a real weapon. If you use it to your advantage, you can do wonders with it. But if you turn the gun on yourself, the obvious thing's going to happen when you sort of pull that trigger and send it out. So you have to be very careful with content. And I think agents are learning about it. We're at that very early stage of then going, I know I need to do it. And then they're thinking, now how the hell do I do it? And they've seen the failures, so they don't want to go there. they've seen people charging a fortune for it. They're like, well, I'm not going to pay that. So I guess they need to figure out how important it is. And for some, it'll be too late once they've figured it out, because their competitors will already be sort of halfway down that road, and then they're playing catch up. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. But we don't help directly with it. I will speak to my members who might ring me and say, what do I do about it? And I'll give them a few pointers, like I've just given to you. You know, be very careful with it, but yeah, absolutely get it right, and it can work wonders. So yeah, well, I don't think our industry's quite yet fathomed it out, if I'm honest, but we're trying. I think we're trying, and there's people out there that you can see on LinkedIn and Facebook sort of offering advice and training and video training and things like that. But I think if you're going to do content right, unless you're naturally talented, I think you've got to outsource it. I'm just not sure you could do it all yourself.
Yeah, and I guess it's the same as most other aspects of estate agency, right? They, like you said earlier, which I totally resonated with, estate agents open estate agency, and because they're good at being an estate agent, not necessarily all the other things like marketing, etc. So it's interesting that that's your viewpoint, though, to outsource it, because on the other end of the spectrum, you've got people who would say, we want to keep things sort of in-house and build our own team and do things internally. What are your thoughts on that, of actually building a team who can do this stuff in-house? Or is it just kind of, okay, yeah, that sounds great, but that's really difficult to actually do in practice? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you could. When I say outsource, I mean don't do it yourself. So that estate agent that started that business as a valuer, and a good one, has turned into a business owner. He or she shouldn't do it themselves. They should get someone to do it for them. So whether that's internal or external, they're outsourcing it from themselves, from their perspective. And I don't mean that they shouldn't be providing some of the content, because they know the local market, right? So agents are very good. Most of them have been in the market for a long time. They've lived in the same town, so they know everything about that town. The content is inside their heads. They just need someone to help them unlock it and position it in a way that's engaging. And that's the bit for me, because the agents have got all the knowledge, and sure, they could go out with their iPhone 12s and shoot half decent videos, but if they're shooting that video into a sunlight, for example, they're just going to become a silhouette on a camera. They might not have a proper microphone. So it's just joining up those bits of going, okay, there's something there inside you that is so knowledgeable. I've just got to get it from you, then leave it to the pros to position it and put it out. I think that's where it could be really effective.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting how you said the content is inside of estate agents, obviously, right? Because nobody knows their market better than them. I was having a really good chat with Amanda O'Brien, who runs content for estate agents, the other day. She's one of Prop Media's clients. And, I asked her, for estate agents who do want to put out their own stuff, they always ask, well, how do I know what to make? And she came up with a brilliant answer, which is kind of along the lines of what you said, is the content's already in your head, and all you need to do to pull it out is just look back at your day or look back at your week. Anytime you've interacted with somebody in a local market, a landlord, a buyer, a seller, what questions did they ask you? Now, you probably answered those just flippantly, that it was, you didn't even think about it because it's second nature to you. Maybe it doesn't seem that interesting to you, but to them, that was the exact piece of knowledge that they needed, right? So if you've got people already asking you these questions, or what are your frequently asked questions, essentially, that's such a great place to start, because your local market's already asking you that. So you can bet if you then go and put that content out online, they're going to be asking the exact same questions, because we're all pretty similar, right? So yeah, no, I thought that could be a good tip for estate agents thinking, where do I start, right? You can start with what's already in your head, And it's just being a little bit conscious of those conversations you're having and getting into a little bit of a pattern to say, okay, oh, that was actually maybe a good bit of content. Jot it down, like you said, on your iPhone 12, just put it in your notes. And then before you know it, you've got 10, 20, 30 pieces of content to put out.
Yeah, I think it's such a big conversation because it even relates back to brand and how your brand looks when you're putting the content out and things like that. So, do you have a good brand? Do you have good logos? Do you have brand standards? Are you looking right? Are you sounding right? All that tone of voice, all that kind of stuff. Because I think if you get that bit right, and people are constantly seeing your content coming on their mobile phones or wherever they're looking for content, that enough subconsciously is enough to get that brand into their subconscious mind. So when they come to instruct an agent, they're immediately going to think of you because they kept seeing your stuff coming through. But it comes back to what I said of the loaded gun, because if your brand is not very good and you've not done anything with it for 10 years and it looks a bit tired, you can probably get unsubscribed, or you can get people going, keep seeing that agent really annoying me. I actually don't like the look of them. They're just not my kind of people. And so I think people are quite, we subconsciously consume content, I think, and we're consuming it at a rapid rate. It's quite unbelievable, I think, because even when I look on LinkedIn in the morning, I've got a habit of looking on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just so I know before I get dressed for the day, I've got an idea of what's going on in the world. And I read the obviously the property industry, estate agents today, negotiator stuff. So that's how I start my day. But the amount of content I'm consuming and how quickly I consume it is quite shocking, really. Because I'm reading all those online publications. I'm probably reading 30 articles, but I'm reading them really quickly. Like, click the headline. Is that an attractive headline? Yeah, click on it and then speed read it, pull out the bits I want. Next article, speed read it, pull out the bits I want, and so on and so forth. I might look at 150 tweets, but I'll remember 2 of them and just accept that's the bit of Twitter content I need for the day. The rest of it I don't need. Same with Instagram. So I think the amount of time we're getting to get good content out there and the attention span is so small as well. It's a really hard thing. And you're asking estate agents who are alien to content to start doing this stuff, to make it engaging, to make it informative, to make it presentable, to make it attractive within 3 seconds is probably what you've got. I mean, that's tough, right? It's really, really hard. And if everyone's doing it in your area, then how then do you stand out? Because you don't want to all be putting the same content out. So it's a really big conversation, isn't it? It's but you've got to start. I think you have to start somewhere. If you're an agent, you've got to understand the power of it. And like you said before, a really good point. If you just do bite-sized chunks of this, just do 1%, and just start by getting comfortable with one part of it, whether that's how you look on camera if you're going to do it, or what equipment you're going to use before you go out and start doing it, or how your brand looks before you start doing it. It's that sort of thing, isn't it? But I think practice makes perfect. And I think agents will get it wrong, but they shouldn't let that put them off. You've got to keep going at it, really. And if you just simply can't do it, then you've got to find someone else that can.
Yeah, no, completely. And I think, that's a really nice kind of message to start wrapping up with on content. To be honest, I didn't expect us to be going this much into content, but I think it is such an important topic right now, because you can feel it, right? You're, in a sense, speaking to a lot of agents. I'm speaking to a lot of agents. You can see that people, agents know they need to do it, and we're really on that precipice of moving to the point where, okay, I know I need to do it. Every single client I speak to, who I say, we're doing this campaign. You don't have to, but if you want to, if you shoot this 30-second video, it will really help. It will help build your brand. Here's how to do it. Every single one of them does not want to do it. I completely understand why, but then it is those ones who move first who then reap the rewards, right? So
Yeah.
That's first move advantage. So if you are on the borderline thinking, I know I need to do it, but don't really want to, just look and project yourself into a year or two when now your competitors are doing it, because everybody has caught onto it. Now's the time to give it a try. Maybe you slip up a couple of times and you make a bit of a fool of yourself. You can always remove it if it's that bad, right? But get somebody else to look. Yes, maybe before it goes out. That's what we do, at least. Always have somebody to check it. To finish up, I'd love to ask you just a couple of fun questions. First one I've got for you is, what's one of your, I guess you've actually been an estate agent, and now you're obviously running the FIA, so you can look back at all of your experience to answer this, but what's one of your biggest pet peeves within the property industry or amongst estate agents?
Keeping it relevant to this chat, I'd say those that go on social media or write a blog in January and then write another one in September, or tweet and then don't do anything for months and months and months, or all those sort of things. So it's a bit of a bugbear of mine that it just makes you look worse. It just makes you look worse. And the other thing I would say is reviews. So not keeping on top of your reviews is a bit of a bugbear, because you've got great agents out there doing SEO, for example, and PPC really well, or driving traffic via Google. And the first people look at is or first thing they can see when they Google you is your ratings. So a lot of the time they're spending money driving to Google, for example, but then Google saying this company's not very good. So you spend all the money trying to get there, and then your reputation lets you down. So I think the stoppiness of that is really detrimental to businesses. And yes, we can all have bad reviews, and it would be false if we didn't, because we can't be perfect. So how you deal with those reviews is probably the answer to it if you get a bad one. But I don't think we should be shy of asking for them, because everyone is aware of Google reviews. And it's the same thing. If you've got one review and it's 3 stars and someone's looking for an estate agent in your area, that's going to probably put them off. So that's a bit of a pet hate, because you get some brilliant agents that just don't care about their reviews enough. So yeah, I'd say those at the moment.
Yeah, that's actually a really good one. I'm on the case to a lot of my clients about getting reviews. And look, if you're ever thinking, okay, well, I asked for a review, they didn't send me the review, there's nothing wrong. If you've done a really good job, you've had a great relationship with that vendor, nothing wrong with asking once more, or even just for a little incentive. We all love a little freebie, Amazon voucher, whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I've had clients who have got literally 150 Google reviews within a couple of weeks just by putting out a message with a little incentive, and they've gone from 0 on Google all the way up to basically 5 stars just by doing that. All genuine reviews, just with a little incentive behind it. And it does give you such a good impression. And if you want to really take that one step further, what we get our clients to do, it's not going to work for everybody, but if you've got those vendors who are a little bit more comfortable, maybe you did your virtual Zoom viewing, so they're okay on camera, ask them to shoot a quick video, right? A lot of them are going to see a compliment that you want to showcase to them and tell that story, because if you've got that video there, you can then, there's so much you can do with that. You can put that into a blog, a social media campaign, you can have it, all over the place online. And a video does tell much more of a story than text. Text is great, don't get me wrong, but the video does carry an extra degree of authenticity to it.
No, agreed.
Just a little tip there. Okay, next one for you. It's what should we go with next? All right, so you look back at your career. We all have lots of successes, lots of failures. When you look back at your failures, I'm going to put these in quotation marks, or perceived failures, what's one of your favorite failures, or what's one of those failures you look back at and actually it led to a later success?
Jeez. I would have to say I started an online business, an online estate agency called House Network back in 2004, early 2005. We launched, and that was the first of its kind. So before Purple Bricks existed, the failure there, in hindsight, was not being aggressive enough with the opportunity that I had. So I sort of opened the frontier, this new frontier of this new potentially amazing product to sell your home for a few £100 online. But I wasn't aggressive enough in taking that market, and Purple Bricks came and showed me how to be aggressive. Not an easy thing to do, but obviously they raised lots of money and they went on TV and they just absolutely smashed it in terms of marketing. Ultimately, did it succeed? You'd have to say yes, it's still here and it's still worth a healthy sum of money. It got up to an enormous amount of money, of £1 billion market cap at one stage. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, a learning from that would definitely be not being aggressive enough. When you get an opportunity to strike, you should take it.
Strike while the iron's hot. I love that.
Definitely.
All
Definitely.
Right. Last one for you, and then I'll let you go. I'm going to project forward many, many years into the future. It's your last day with us on Earth. You've built up your company, probably several other companies by then to an absolute fortune, but you can't leave them behind to your loved ones, your family, people you care about, any charities, but you can leave behind one nugget of wisdom or one piece of advice. What would you leave them behind with?
Oh, okay, I'm going to go for this one. So my one bit of advice would be, this could be quite controversial, I think, but I'm going to say it. So I wouldn't recommend reading any business books of any leaders that tell you their story and where they failed and came good. I wouldn't take much notice of them at all. I would learn by failing yourself, because every failure is unique and you can only learn from your own failures, not for anyone else's. So all these books you see about, this is how you make it in business, become a millionaire like this, a millionaire like that. There's so many of them out there you can go and find. And they all tell you their story. But you can only learn, in my opinion, by making those F-ups yourself and really feeling what it's like to get punched in the face yourself.
Brilliant one to end up on there. Graham, I want to thank you for your time and coming on.
No problem at all.
Yeah, let's do one of these again in the future when the FIA is double where it is, and we can do a little bit of a recap.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to.